I'm here with Patricia Velasquez, and we're talking love letters.
So we were just talking about the fact that if you were to talk to your younger self, you would tell her you're not alone.
Yes, I would tell them you're not alone.
And I mentioned everyone there were so many people in your apartment, but at the same time you all felt alone. And you were just sharing a story that it's basically kind of continued throughout life.
Yes, definitely. It has continued. I'm gay, and as we were saying before, and I've always been attracted to older people. Mm-hmm. Whether I love knowledge, and whenever I meet someone that knows more than I know, which I know nothing basically, but I know a little more, and a little then I gag. I go, and I was dating this person last year, wonderful woman, a lot older than me, and we did. It was a really wonderful relationship, but the age difference was just too much. Mm-hmm. And then once we broke up, I was so sad. It was one of those breakups that you go, this is not normal. This was just a few months. Mm-hmm. Where is all this sadness? What? And then I realized that the sadness that I was feeling, because she was a wonderful woman, to lose somebody like that, it was really the sadness of being taken care of. Mm-hmm. For the first time I had met someone who was older, she wasn't taking care of me financially or anything, but emotionally she was always there. Mm-hmm. And just to know that you had that there, which is something I never had, it's almost like I went back to being that little girl of 8 years old and feeling for the first time that I had someone to take care of me. Yeah. And I never really judged my parents on the sense that now, me being a mom, no one teaches us how to be parents. That's and true. Really, it is so challenging. And now I look back and I go, everyone is just trying to do their best. Mm-hmm. And when I ended this relationship a few months ago, I understood it's because for the first time I had met someone that represented that care that I didn't have when I was a kid. And it gave me a really wonderful opportunity to work on something that I've never even looked at before. Because
isn't that fascinating how that happens?
Yes.
Like someone will come into your life even for a moment, but they leave you with kind of an insight into yourself. And it's up to us to recognize that and realize it's something that we need to work on.
Yes, because if you don't, the universe is going to
bring that person
back over and over in different faces. Yes. Until you deal with it.
Yeah. What do you think was the lesson? Like, what do you decide to do different moving forward?
I started understanding that I'm worth it, that I belong. That is a word two words that I've been using so much, because I think a lot of people they're probably going to watch or hear this. You might be one of those people like me who considers themselves an outsider. Mm-hmm. For many different circumstances. Yeah. And what made me understand this situation with this wonderful woman is that you belong. I belong. You don't have to be this or that. Nowadays, look at technology. You mm-hmm. can. We're recording here. This is going to go somewhere else, and you're going to watch it at home, or you're going to listen to it at home. Who knows in what city? So that's definitely what remained as a lesson.
One of the questions I like to ask is, I think everyone knows something about themselves, like innately, like they have a strength or something about themselves that they've known from the time that they were very little. Mm-hmm. Like, what innately do you know is like your greatest strength?
I think I'm a leader. I know that since I was very little. It is my strength. Sometimes can be a pain, because I understand that I have to have a mission in life, and sometimes I don't do it because I get lazy or because I'm jet lagged or I'm tired. Mm-hmm. And then I feel really bad about it.
Do you find that if you don't have like a sense of purpose, does it feel like a lost kind of feeling? I met you several months ago, and you have a foundation, and you're going and you're helping children who don't have the things that every kid should, in life. and it seems like your entire life is wrapped around purpose in a lot
Yes.
of ways. So I'm just curious, like if those things aren't showing up, how do you feel?
This is such a great question, because if you are wondering what to do, or sometimes you might feel that you're having tremendous problems, like they say, when you have the biggest problems, go take care of somebody else. It's almost like by you taking care of other people, even if it's that just one person that's next to you, the universe takes care of you. I understood that very, very early on, and that is what has allowed me to go out and know that I can get things for the foundation and I can get them done. When it comes to asking for things for me, I can't.
Yeah.
I have a very little self-esteem.
That
when
was
it
the
comes
next
to that.
question. It's kind of like, what's the one thing that you know about yourself that's
Yes.
negative? Is that
100%.
self-esteem?
Self-esteem. Yes.
Really?
I think growing up has a lot to do with it, because when you grow up oppressed, and with no hope in a way, so
It doesn't really leave you.
it doesn't leave you.
Yeah. For a lot of people, I think it would be surprising for them to hear that, right? Because of the career that you've had.
But you'd be surprised, Jeanette, because I remember, I have to tell you, I've never said this before. I was fortunate enough to be one of the supermodels, and years working with all the big girls, and we shared and spent so many nights and months in different cities and countries in the world. And that was across the board, the main issue with the models.
And what's funny, I've seen it sometimes with people who are personalities, right? You realize that they actually do suffer from low self-esteem. So if there's a girl watching this right now, because that's one of my pleasure, my greatest that I love about this project is when I get to stand in front of a group of girls and talk to them. And one of the things that I was really surprised about is how at such a young age, not only is there a lack of self-esteem, but they're looking at all of these Instagram models and Facebook feeds and Twitter and Snapchat, and they're wanting to emulate those girls, but it's not real.
It's not real. Have you ever posted on Instagram a moment where you're low?
Right.
Never. Do you go on a boat? You post Instagram. You're in a fabulous restaurant, you post Instagram. You're laughing, you're having a great time, you post on Instagram or any other social media. But in the low moments, you don't. It's you just don't. So it is. We are in just posting what we like people to think of us. Is the idea of who you are and what you want people to perceive of you. But it's not really truth. So the truth. So that's why I believe that we all have to understand that social media is not real. It doesn't matter what you do and what an amazing life you might have, there's always going to be someone that has a better life than yours on Instagram or Snapchat or one of those. So my advice to you would be just know that.
Yeah.
Know that it's not real.
I think it's interesting when I talk to women who've had these really fascinating lives, and to find out everyone's so human, we're all so connected, we all have our own stuff that stays with us through the majority of our life. And I'm just curious with, when you're talking about self-esteem being the one thing, how has that as an adult, have you found, like you were talking about, like you want to make sure that you're purposeful in the way you interact. Are there any other ways that it's shown up?
If it's about triggers, I definitely have a lot of them, because I am in a business where you are exposing yourself to rejection all the time.
Yeah.
So anytime I have, let's say an audition, let's say I don't have an offer and I have to audition for a part, immediately I get angry.
I remember you talking about this. I thought it was so fascinating. You're like, when do I get to stop auditioning?
Yeah, I get really angry, and I do get offers. Don't take me wrong. I'm in a good place, but I have to audition sometimes too. And when I get an audition, I get really angry. And I have to start, and that is a trigger for me, because it's a way of, I don't want to be rejected anymore. I don't want rejection anymore because it makes me feel bad. Yeah. Or I'll give you a classic one for us that we're dating. I mean, for me that I'm dating. I don't know about you, but for us, people like us that are dating. Now, if I am going out with somebody that I might like a lot, I'm never gonna make the first move. They have to make the first move.
You're afraid of being rejected
because I cannot be rejected. Not by a date. So I try to avoid things in my life or put myself in situations where I'm going to feel rejected. And the other thing that I learned, which we did talk about a few months ago, is this gluten thing.
I loved that.
Right?
That was so funny.
That's what I'm bringing because I know you love it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say because I know you loved it. It's no, I have an allergy to gluten, and it's weird because I've never been allergic. Ever since I stopped eating gluten, I now, before I used to put myself in situations where I will bring people around that make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And now I learn that your instinct, your soul, always tells you right away.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, okay, when I feel it, I feel this person has gluten.
I'm gonna just start like thinking of people that way.
Gluten.
Like if they come around and like I feel myself,
gluten.
I'll be like, you
have gluten.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with you. I just gotta stay away. That's it. You have gluten. So I try to, and this is something that maybe you can use. I try to do one activity every day that is for me. And it doesn't have to be an activity that takes too long. And it doesn't matter what happens that day, that one thing cannot be taken off.
Yeah.
Because we have the tendency to take that one off the list first when we get busy. And I am going to advise to you to not take it away. Doesn't matter what happens, that is the one thing you cannot take away from that list.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge proponent of that. I feel like we do have a tendency to think that self-care is selfish.
Right.
And I think it's like the most selfless thing you can do for the
Yeah.
people that you love. What's the best thing that ever happened to you?
Oh, it's just, if you ask that to a mom, we're probably always going to answer the same question, but definitely Maya is the best thing that's ever happened to me, my daughter. It gave meaning to so many things and purpose.
I feel like kids make you more dimensional. You know, like before you're very kind of self-obsessed. You internalize a lot of stuff, and all of a sudden the way you look at your friendships and your relationships and even yourself changes when you have a child.
For sure. But I also believe, like, if I have to look back before I had a child, and what would have I changed is if we can start looking at that little child within us and treat it like if it was our child.
That's one of the things I've loved about this love letters process is as I'm talking to the women or as they're writing the letters, you can hear their voice almost become a little bit more nurturing as they talk about their younger selves. And I had one of them actually say, if we could only do that like when we're reminiscing and like thinking of the lessons, if we could do that every day to ourselves, like how much better we would be. When you look back over your life, what is your most humbling experience or your hardest lesson?
Well, I can tell you my hardest lesson, for sure. And I wrote about this in my book, and it just immediately goes to that place. I had a friend he's the one that discovered me when I was, ever since I was 15 years old, he kept saying, you gotta go to the Miss Venezuela pageant. This person, as years went by, I left and I became a known model, a successful person. And, you know, I kind of separated myself from him. And many, many years later, he called me to ask me for some money to get a hip replacement surgery. And I was so busy living the life of a supermodel that I didn't even think about it. Like, I just let it go, and I didn't help him. And he died. And something just it woke me up.
Yeah.
It made me realize that it doesn't matter how, and this is why when we talk about making sure that one thing in your list is there no matter what, whether that is something that takes 2 minutes, that you like to make yourself a cup of tea at 7 o'clock. Just, you have to make sure you do it, because it's in those moments where all those messages are going to come.
It brings you back to humanity.
Yeah, and right in the pit of your stomach, you're going to feel, you're going to start receiving all those messages.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing any of that. I was just moving at a million miles speed, and I regret it. and I understand that I made a mistake because I was the only one that could have helped him, and I didn't, and he died. So that's
the biggest one for you. You wrote in your book, I read your book and I cried in this section when you came out to your mom. And you talked a lot about living kind of a lie, living a falsehood. And you wanted so badly to be able to live who you were. But it was you. I think the last time when I saw you in Sun Valley, your mom still hasn't read the book, has she? You have a hard time with that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this was the first chapter of the book, and I had done a movie called This in September that talks about basically being in the closet, and this is inspired on a really wonderful, famous play called Last Summer at Bluefish Cove, and it's a take on this play. We started going to all these festivals, and then I started seeing how many women and men from around the world will come and talk to me, young kids, and how many of them were in the closet. And I said, I think I need to help them. I gotta help them. So I started writing this book, and in the book I talk about how it was that I came out to my family. And my mom, who lived in Venezuela, she didn't know anything, and I have gone out already with somebody for 5 years, and then this was my second or third relationship. So I remember that I'm just going to tell you a little bit, but I called an ambulance to wait downstairs because I thought my mom was going to have a heart attack. I didn't know how she was going to react. And isn't it amazing how sometimes when we go out of ourselves, the gifts that we receive. I went to Venezuela, I talked to my mom, and the one thing that she said to me, she said, Mija, I really don't understand. I wish I could, but I can only feel so sad for all these years you trying to tell me something and not being able to do it. How much pain that has caused you. And it was so incredibly beautiful. My mom is afraid of water, and she's indigenous, very, very shy. She doesn't say much. She's very quiet. So the day after, we went to the beach, and it was a really, really shallow beach. And my mom, who is totally afraid of water, went in the water, came in the water with me. And I talk about this in the book, she had a little whiskey. And the whiskey had kind of like a floating feature. So she just put the whiskey, and I remember just the whiskey like this. and she doesn't even drink, my mom, either. So the thing is just floating there. And my mom is sitting in that water on the beach. And then all of a sudden she started telling me that when she was 5 years old, and she was in her Indian village, they will have to cross a little river to go to the other side on a little canoe. And usually there were the military that would take them from one side to the other. She was there with a little brother and some woman. And it seems like when she arrived, there were 7 military that said, okay, we'll take you because it's so hot there. So they will see it as an opportunity to get some air. So they got in the water, they swam to the other side, and out of the 7 of them, only 3 came out. And she was 4 years old. She was 5 years old. So she saw this and completely shocked her. It took me to tell her that story for her to then open up and tell me the most important thing in her life that has caused her fear her whole life. She's never gone in the water. And it took me telling her that story for her to open up and tell me her story. I think my idea of writing this was, what is your truth? What is your truth, really? What is your truth? My truth might be that I'm gay, and your truth might be that I don't know, maybe you're practicing a religion that is not the one you feel that is yours, or what is that truth? What is your truth? And not be afraid to go after it. And you cannot stop living your life and what is meant to be your destiny if you don't live to your full potential, whether that is in your truth, in your creativity, by taking care of yourself. And yes, I know that we live in a very competitive society, but this is also something else that I say to the people around me. People come and say, well, there's so much competition, it's so hard, it's hard financially. I don't know how I'm gonna make it. There's just not so much work. And I think that we gotta look at the other side. I think it's the opposite. Yes, there is competition, but there's so much work out there. There's so many opportunities. Like even in my business, okay, maybe you're not getting a movie, or you're not. Yeah, there's so many actors. Yeah, but look how much. So look how much it has grown. Now we have Netflix. There is so much demand for content. So it doesn't matter what type of business or what it is that you want to do or that you like to do. You gotta connect to the abundance and not the lack. Because when you connect to the lack, it becomes an excuse for you to not try harder.
Well, and I think it's really beautiful too, because if you think about it, it's like you can choose it's like the sliding doors. Like you can choose which life, right? And you can stay very quiet, and you can stay in the religion, or if your family is uncomfortable with you coming out, or if they're comfortable with belief systems, or they're racist, and you live in that world, what are you missing out on?
Right.
What haven't you experienced by, sometimes it's bumping up against those belief systems and those cultural bias in order to open yourself up and see what else is out there.
Right. And it's fear. At the end, what happens and what stops us from doing things and believing in ourselves and having low self-esteem, it is fear.
I have an executive coach who shared like this really cool story that I think of every time like I'm having an issue with fear or a trigger or something like that. And he was telling me about the story of Siddhartha when he was on his way to becoming Buddha, and he was on his way to enlightenment. The demon Mara came to him and tried to tempt him with all of these things, with ego, with lust, with greed, with all of these things, and Buddha just wasn't mean to him, but he didn't do anything. He just kind of ignored him, and Mara kept coming back, and Buddha ended up becoming enlightened, and Mara would still come back, and Buddha would invite him to have tea with him and sit as an honored guest, and he would say, "I see you, Mara, come have tea." So whenever I have fear, or whenever I have an issue or a trigger and I can feel it, I imagine myself looking at it and saying, "Hello, Mara, let's have tea." Like, I'm just gonna befriend you at this point, and let's have tea. And if you speak it, sometimes it starts to not only lose its power a little bit, but you also have to start to befriend it to some extent for it to actually work itself out. So that's my new thing now. Whenever anything comes up, I'm like, "Come, Mara, let's have tea."
Come, Mara, let's have tea. Come on, Mara, let's have tea.
Exactly.
Then, I love that. Yeah, it's emotions, and the emotions are going to pass. This is the thing. You sit and you watch them pass.
Yeah.
It'll pass. It's just if you stay in them,
you get lost in them at times.
Get lost in them. So we can't, and we're not saying don't feel them.
Right.
Because that would be being really hard at yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, give me a break. I feel sad. I'm scared. I'm lonely.
Just being able to say those words, you're greeting it. You're greeting it, and you can feel it. But I think I love the idea that sometimes you can make a choice to greet it and feel it and process it, or a choice to sit in it.
Exactly.
And you have to choose one or the other. If you had the opportunity to look at any woman or girl today and give them like a message, heart to heart, something that you would want people to know, what would you say?
I guess what I would say is probably what I always want for someone to say to me. In those hard moments, we feel lonely. So I will probably say that you are not alone. Because that's what I would want for me. Just move forward and go through this, because you will get to the other side.
No, I think it's so powerful and beautiful, and it's funny that like when I go to these conferences with girls especially, and you suddenly see them connect with one another or start to see their own story in someone who's been successful. There's one girl, I asked, if anyone, imagine your future self, what does she look like? And this little girl raised her hand, she's about 13, and she said, she's Latina, she's dark, beautiful, long hair, and she said, she's tall and blonde, and she looks nothing like me, and she's confident. And I was just like, like that just got you in the heart, I think the thing that killed me with her is that like I watched her kind of like fall into her shoulders as she was talking, and she says, "I want to be confident, and I want to be this, and I want to be that." And it was one of those things where you have to think on your feet, right? And it's no longer, here's the curriculum. It's like, I need to connect with you as a human being. And I remember telling her, you're going to one day appreciate the things that make you different. things that are unique about you today, one day you're gonna love that you have them. You don't know that yet, but you will. And as far as confidence, like, you raised your hand. You were the first person to raise your hand. Your confidence is growing inside of you. And she was like, and I'm like, and you're beautiful. And it was just like one of those moments where you're like, I need to connect with this little person who doesn't feel seen, you know, and doesn't feel like she's part of a larger group. So I just think it's like so beautiful when you can like share those types of messages and be like, this is what I wanted to hear.
Right.
You know, and you can say it to someone else. I think it's gorgeous. When you look back over the course of your life, is there anyone that you feel like you need to forgive? How do you feel when it comes to the practice of forgiveness?
Yeah, I definitely think there is someone that I need to forgive. But I think at the core, I just need to forgive myself. Because again, and this is probably from what we were talking about before, you know, we have such a high expectations and sometimes I make so many mistakes over and over and over again, and I realize I just need to forgive myself, and I haven't. But I'm definitely working on it.
Yeah, there's I like the idea that people have an active forgiveness process, because, you know, people are like, oh, just forgive them, forgive yourself. It's not that easy.
No.
It's in layers.
Yes, totally.
And I think that, like, it's part of our becoming better people is learning how to forgive. And sometimes it's a word or a sentiment, and sometimes it's beating a punching bag until you get the person out of you. And, you know, and it's like, there's so many different iterations. And so sometimes I get frustrated when I hear these thought leaders are like, just learn to forgive. And I'm like, it's not that simple. Not. And whenever I'm doing these workshops and I end with, is the person you need to forgive yourself? Almost every time people start to get teary-eyed. And I feel like there's such healing in just the act of forgiving ourselves sometimes that we haven't tapped into it fully.
I feel, Jeanette, that this is a constant work. And, you know, we work hard, and then we go here. And then you kind of do something, and then you go back down. And then you gotta start going, again. And then you do something, you go back down. And then you go with it, and then but if you notice, every time I fall down, I'm a little bit higher than I was before. So it's just because we are so aware, it feels much hard. It feels, when we fall, it feels like, oh my gosh,
I was there.
And I've gone so far, and now I missed it, and now I'm, but the truth is that you're not in the place where you were. And it is a constant work, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for opening up your house and talking to me about this stuff. I am truly appreciative. I feel like I meet people throughout life, and you can tell that they are good souls. And like, I knew that immediately about you. And when I read your book and I was reading about your relationship with your mom, I was like, oh, it's very, very sweet. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, Jeanette, thank you. I think this is wonderful what you're doing, and especially because you're a conduit, you know, for other people. And I just hope that all the messages that we are bringing to you resonate. We all go through pain. We all go through challenges. Doesn't matter how famous, not famous, successful, less successful. We all are human beings. At the end of the day, we relate through the same feelings, emotions. There are no cultures. At the end, emotions are universal. And there's nothing that you feel that I don't feel, or that you haven't felt. And if we can understand, right now I'm trying to work hard on compassion, you know, and gratitude, because it's so hard. This is something also that you can take away with you. Like, just every morning when I wake up, I think of 3 things I'm thankful for, and then when I go to sleep, I write down quickly 3 things I'm thankful for. And the more you cultivate that, you start having a better outcome on things, because you start seeing things in a much more positive way. And also, the one last thing is you're angry, you know, somebody has road rage with you, or you know that somebody did something that it's wrong, and you're right. Just try to look at it with compassion, and maybe just take for a moment before you react and think, what is what is it that making the other person behave that way, before you react. And then when you communicate with them, if it's something that you have to do, then do so from a place of understanding where they're coming from. Let them see that you see that they're human beings, and immediately something is going to break, and you will create a connection that will be so worth it.
Yeah, the power of being seen is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Connecting on a human level. And you helped me with that last night. I had my own little issue that I was talking to her about, and she's like, let's look at it from the other person's perspective. So, no, I absolutely I get it.
That's sweet. No.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you. Can't wait for this to be out there in the world.
Yes, thank you.